Okay. Let's open Hebrews chapter 11. And last time we talked about verse 1, right?
Yes.
So we found a definition of faith. It says, now faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. This is what the ancients were commended for. So the first thing that the author of this book mentions is actually goes back to the very beginning, to the book of Genesis. And verse 3 says, by faith we understand that the universe was formed at God's command, so that what is seen was not made out of what was visible. So number one in this whole chapter is the understanding. Faith gives you an understanding who God is. And God is the creator of the world, creator of the universe. That's number one. And it says, by faith we understand. So this reader, the author includes everyone, every believer as under this pronoun we. We as believers understand. So that's why when people don't believe in God, it's very difficult for them to understand the rest of the story, the Bible. When they read the Bible, it's like, I have no clue what it means. And I have lots of examples. People talk about their friends who are non-believers. When they attempted to read the Bible, they don't understand it because they have no faith. They approach God without faith. They approach God trying to please him, but it says without faith it's impossible to please God. Verse 6. Afterwards, this chapter lists the so-called heroes of faith. And as I was studying this chapter, it's interesting. I thought, the Bible's, like before I studied it, for me it was just a list of different people. A list of people who had faith, who did something, and so what? But then when I studied it, I'm like, wow, this is like a whole universe that opened up. And the author of this book opens different aspects of faith. That definition in verse 1 is not like an isolated verse, because if we read chapter 10, there are two quotes from the Old Testament. It says, in just a little while, he who is coming will come and will not delay. That means God or Jesus. And about the believers, it says, but my righteous one will live by faith, and I take no pleasure in the one who shrinks back. And the verse 39 encourages us. It says, we do not belong to those who shrink back and are destroyed, but to those who have faith and are saved. So our destiny is salvation. If we grasp the concept of faith, what is promised to us is salvation. We are saved by faith. And there are different aspects of faith. It's very interesting. If we start with Abel, it's verse 1. It says, by faith, Abel brought God a better offering than Cain did. By faith he was commended as righteous when God spoke well of his offerings. And by faith, Abel still speaks even though he's dead. Yes. I'd like us to stop on each example and discuss what we think this verse means to us, what it says like directly to us, and how we understand it. So any ideas, any opinions? By the way, every verse like that starts with the phrase by faith, by faith, by faith. By faith, so-and-so did this and that. And we'll talk about it. So let's talk about Abel. So it says, by faith Abel brought God a better offering than Cain did. By faith he was commended as righteous when God spoke well of his offerings. And by faith Abel still speaks even though he's dead. So the question is, what does this, why did he bring up Abel in the first place? Why did he not start with Adam, Abel's father, or Eve, Abel's mother, because these were the descendants of Adam and Eve, Abel and Cain. So he mentions Abel as a person of faith and says Cain was not such a person. Why did he not start with Adam and Eve?
Because Adam seen God, and his faith is the substance of things not seen.
Yeah, and of course, I can be agree with you because I was thinking about this particular chapter, and Adam, he sees God, talk to God, and he actually named everything, universe, all of these animals, these.
He's seen God create.
So he sees everything. So he doesn't need to apply faith.
Okay.
To believe in God, because he talked to God actually, he already know and have some connection with God, and God came time to time to visit him.
So what you're saying is that Adam and Eve did not need faith because they already experienced God.
God's presence, yes.
God's presence. They had communication with God. They spoke with God.
Yep.
And you said what?
Adam seen God create on day 6.
Yeah, yeah. So on day 6, whatever God was creating, Adam was a witness of that.
Yep.
All the living creatures.
And he actually named all of these things also because he sees them.
Yeah, yeah. Now we go down to Abel. And Abel was older brother or younger brother?
Abel was a younger brother.
Okay. So why is that displeased God? Maybe we should go back to the Genesis story. That's chapter 4. It says, "Oh, Abel kept flocks and Cain worked the soil." Verse 3, chapter 4 of Genesis. "In the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord, and Abel also brought an offering, fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. And the Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering he did not look with favor. So Cain was very angry, and his face was downcast. Then the Lord said to Cain, 'Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it.' And now Cain said to his brother Abel, 'Let's go out to the field.' While they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him." And so there's a dialogue between Cain and God. But here Hebrews says that he brought better offering than Cain did. In Genesis it says that God looked at Abel and his offering with favor. And it says Abel brought his offering by faith. I think that's the key to understand. And because Abel was able to find favor in God's eyes, because he had faith, we can make a conclusion that Cain didn't have such faith.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
That's one reason, yeah.
Anything that you can add? Maybe you, Nick?
Yeah, by faith. I was just kind of dug into it by faith. By faith. As I'm thinking about it, to come to God knowing ahead of time that I believe if I would say something or ask or in faith, just that believing, not having any other ambitions, personal reason to try to show God, how good I am or whatever, None of that. It was just faith that God would be, happy or whatever he thought. But it was the faith, and it's the faith that God really underlines. That's important to him, and I really see that really the key is just to have that faith, to believe, purity in heart, not having my own ambition to do something. And I think it was just that I really see that. I never really thought about it before, but I really see that way right now. that to God it's so important to have that pure heart, not to have any of my, personal reasons why I'm doing this.
Okay.
Something out of it myself, and that's not what God wants.
But when you say, when you do something without having your personal reasons, what if faith is your personal reason?
I mean, what I'm saying is.
Can faith be your personal reason?
No, what I'm saying is earthly.
Earthly ambitions?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Are you saying that when you come to God without without expecting Him to give you something back, right? Is that what you're saying?
That is just all in one clump, I guess.
Okay.
To get something out of it, I guess I'm so shallow with words to explain.
That's all right. Let me give you a hint. So when we read such things, basically it's almost like a historical account, right? When you tell a story, what do you mostly use? You mostly use verbs, right? You describe people's actions. Okay? Let's say when you tell a story how your today's day has been, what would you use? Oh, I woke up in the morning, I made coffee, I got in a car, went to work. So those are the verbs. You're describing actions that you took, right? Mm-hmm. Look at this account. It's full of verbs. It says, Abel brought God a better offering than Cain did. Okay, so that's an action. Then it says, by faith he was commended as righteous when God spoke well of his offerings. And by faith Abel still speaks. So that's a verb, that's an action. He still speaks and he brought better offering. Brought. So that's a verb. But to me it says that faith is not simply a mental process or mental work. Like you sit down and you believe. That's not faith.
Faith without works is dead.
Exactly. So that's what James says, right? Mm-hmm. Faith without works is dead. But what kind of works? Because the same James says that even demons believe and tremble. What do you think? When we talk about faith being an action, not just an emotion or not some mental process.
Think of it like when Jesus says, be like kids, when your child believes that they're gonna get fed or whatever, they poop in the paper, they believe it's gonna be good.
It's gonna be cleaned.
It's like, that's how I see it. Whatever Jesus said, apply that, and you'll be good.
What if we look in the text? What does the story of Abel tell you? So it says, by faith he brought an offering. What does it mean? Bringing an offering, what does it mean? What does a person do when they bring a sacrifice? What do you call this act? What do you call this action?
Passion of faith, I think. Worship.
Exactly, that's the thing. That's the word I was looking for. So faith is an act of worship. So the first thing that you need to do when you please God is accept Him as the creator of the world, right? It's verse 3. We understand by faith that the universe was formed at God's command.
Yes.
Okay? So the first step in your relationship with God is to admit by faith that God is the creator. Nothing came into existence without God. And the second step, when you have faith puts you down on your knees to worship God.
Yeah.
You cannot avoid worship if you say, "Oh, I believe in God." If you do believe in God and don't worship God, that means you don't believe in God. Having faith without worshiping God is empty faith. It doesn't mean anything. Because if you look at verse 6, it says, and without faith it's impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to Him, okay?
Yeah.
When you have faith, you come to God. You don't run away from God. You don't hide from God. You go to God And that's why it says he must believe that God exists and he rewards those who earnestly seek him. Okay, so the first step, recognize God. Faith recognizes God as the creator. Second, faith makes you a worshiper. Okay, remember when Jesus said, and the Father is seeking the worshipers that would worship him in the spirit and truth, when he talked with the Samaritan woman at the well. Okay, who wants to read verse 5? Yeah.
Yeah, can I add something? Adam, when we talk about worship God
Yeah.
by faith, and it's good. But what I notice in this verse also, if we go back to Genesis, the Bible says Abel brought something to God, it came also. So they come to worship God with what they have. If you don't have anything, you can bring anything. So
Correct.
Even you have faith, right, is good. But they bring something
Right.
ready to worship God. And I was thinking, okay, often, probably the modern time right now, we talk about bring your offering, right, to God, and everybody think just money. But my opinion, not only money, your time can worship God. Absolutely. You can spend time with God. Everything you have today, I think that you can use to worship God. Absolutely. Your house can worship God. Everything. So not just money, your tithe, your offering on Sunday. And your sons can worship God too, because yes, we have some, I'm here to worship, right? There's a song like that. So that time, the person is not talking about money.
Right.
Yeah, he believed, but he uses songs and hymns, whatever, to worship God too. And I think that when we believe, we can use everything God's given to us to worship Him. That's what I think.
Even gifts, even like your talents,
Yes.
whatever you can do.
Yes? Yeah.
Like for instance, if you're a good mechanic and someone asks you to help them,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
you can basically dedicate your good quality work to God, because the Bible says everything you do, let everything be for the glory of God.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So basically, the Apostle Paul says that this is your act of worship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So verse 5, does anybody want to read? You want to read verse 5?
By faith Enoch was translated that he should not see death, and was not found because God had translated him. For before his translation he had this testimony that he pleased God.
So by faith Enoch was taken from this life, so that he did not experience death. He could not be found because God had taken him away. Before he was taken, he was commended as one who pleased God. Okay, let's stop there. Any comments here?
I got a comment.
Okay.
So, okay, if you compare the sacrifice of the animal for Adam, and if you compare Enoch's whole life, pretty much, if you like compare Adam's life and Enoch's life, right? Once again, the punishment for the payment for sin is death, right? Enoch never died. I don't think he was like sinless, but similar. I think Enoch was like, you know how David sinned a lot, but he was
The man after God's own heart.
or whatever. Yeah. So I think like Enoch was kind of in that same boat, where he probably, it's not written that he sinned, but like he probably, just because he's a human or whatever, a descendant of Adam, he probably sinned. But like,
You're making a very good point, which is very closer to what I was thinking.
my point is like based off of all that. Even now that we brought David into the picture, even David writes, "Sacrifice and offerings you did not desire, a broken, a contrite heart you will not despise," or whatever. So Enoch, based on what we were just talking about, Enoch probably, like, the sacrifices for Enoch wouldn't be like practical. I don't think. Like, you wouldn't really, like, if you're walking with God or whatever, and it says in Psalms, God's not desiring sacrifices, and Enoch was like cool enough with God where he didn't even suffer death, and Adam had like an animal killed for them. So I'm thinking, basically, my point is like Enoch probably didn't. It wasn't practical for him to offer sacrifices. Is what I'm trying to say.
You're very close to the point I was trying to make. If you look at those two verses, 4 and 5, it says Enoch was taken from this life. So if you go back to the Abel and Cain story of sacrifice, of worshiping God,
Yeah.
God accepted or took the sacrifice of Abel and rejected the sacrifice of Cain.
Okay.
This makes me think that because Enoch was taken from this life, which means Enoch's whole life was a sacrifice to God. His whole life, he didn't spare a single minute to be wasted. It says he walked with God and was no more because God had taken him. Why? Because if you look at Abel,
Yeah.
Abel's sacrifice was taken and Cain's was rejected.
Yeah.
But right now, verse 5, but by faith Enoch was taken. Why? That means God accepted not only his sacrifices, but himself, which means his entire life was a sacrifice. This is my opinion. This is my view of why Enoch never saw death, because he was so close to God. It says in Genesis, it says he walked with God
Yeah.
and was no more because God had taken him. Make sense?
But the only problem with that I see is like it doesn't say that he was sinless
No,
because
no. But look at verse 5. What it says: he was commended as one who pleased God, right?
Yes.
So basically, the whole
So-
what the whole conclusion is like Enoch was justified by grace through faith, like kind of like in the New Testament.
Right. Without faith, it's impossible to please God because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists. And basically, Enoch was commended as one who pleased God. Right? And right here it says it's impossible to please God without faith. That means he had such a great faith, right? Not knowledge, not vision, not sight, but faith. So his faith pleased God so much that he didn't need to die. His faith,
I'm sure he had
Yeah,
knowledge
okay.
because he still talked to Adam.
no, but knowledge doesn't save you.
Yeah.
Like Adam had knowledge about God. He knew God. He was like in God's presence every day.
Adam's story is different because he ate the fruit intentionally.
Right. So Adam didn't need to live by faith. That's why he's not even mentioned here.
Yeah.
But the rest of the generations have to live by faith or die. That's why his faith pleased God so much that he didn't even see death. So my conclusion is faith is an act of pleasing God. Okay?
Yeah.
When you believe, God loves it when you believe. Again, we concluded faith is action. Faith is not just sitting down doing nothing and claiming that you believe in God. No. That's a demonic faith because they believe and tremble. But he who believes in God, as Nick reminded us of James, faith without works is dead. That's why when we act upon faith. And let's say we go and pray for the sick. We use an act of faith.
Yes.
Okay? That pleases God. When we go and preach the gospel to the unbelievers, okay, that's faith. We do it by faith
Yeah.
because what we believe we share with others. That's faith, and that pleases God. Okay, next time, please study the rest of chapter 11
Okay.
and think of different aspects of faith. What is faith? On those examples. Okay, so we concluded faith is acknowledging God as a creator.
Yes.
Second, faith is an act of worship, you know, in the example of Abel. And the third thing, faith is an act of pleasing God, just like Enoch did.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
so that's your homework.